Hey guys, this is Hibana Welding. As you may know, on Instagram and TikTok, we're pretty famous for our stickers. We're also up there with the gloves and the FR.
Yeah, so I'm really glad that you were able to make the call today. And I was just curious, like, how did you start Hibana Welding Company?
A little bit about myself. I was actually already working in construction prior to welding. Seeing other people with their hard hats and their stickers and job site stickers too, but seeing these cool trade stickers like got me interested. So way before I even
Mhm.
started welding, I was already doing plumbing, and I made a welding sticker of a skeleton that had like a stinger and a TIG torch. But I made the sticker anyways, and I thought it was really cool. But I just wanted to have it for me and my friends at work. And then eventually, my wife, she told me, hey, why not just sell it on TikTok or put it on TikTok and sell it? And then eventually that kind of like kickstarted my whole career. And then we're trying to come out with a stinger, but right now we're still like in the prototype phase.
Works. Yep. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I've heard really good reviews of your gloves. I'm gonna have to go check out your website and order me a pair, let you know how they work out.
And we also offer women's sizing. So
Do you?
we don't have women's sizing in stick gloves, but we do have women's sizing in TIG gloves. And our main glove style is TIG.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah,
Mhm.
I am going to be taking my advanced TIG class, I think upcoming March. So yeah,
Mhm.
I'll definitely have to order a pair. But yeah, so how did Habana come to be? Like, how did you get, your company name?
Man, honestly, I think everything sounds cooler in Japanese, right? I think we all could agree
Hmm.
on that, right? I do like the distinctual name, right? Bana's name is actually, it means spark or fire in Japanese, anyways, and it's a common name for the Japanese people. There's that, but that's how that became.
Yeah, I did not know that. I am Okinawan. I knew it's a little bit different from Japanese.
Uh huh.
But I
The
did not
island,
know
right?
Habana meant spark. So I learned
Yeah.
something new today.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there was times where I've thought of different names, but sometimes you just got to pick a name and just go after it, and then the name will become something. You know what I'm saying?
It's one of those names where you think and you just don't forget it. It's a name that
Hmm.
sticks out. So how did you get into welding from plumbing?
When I was plumbing, I did a lot of soldering, a lot of brazing. I guess one
Mhm.
day I just woke up and I said, the only part of me that likes about the plumbing part is the soldering, the brazing, of course, but putting up pipe. And when you put up pipe and you do layout and you do prefab and everything looks great and beautiful when you throw it in the air, it's like, wow, like, man, I didn't know there was an art to it, until I dig deep on YouTube and thank God for WellTube. Shout out to WellTube. They pretty much opened my eyes to like the things about welding and stuff like that. And then one day I just woke up. I quit my job and then I went to the ironworkers. That's kind of how I started welding then.
You were in the ironworkers. Is that like union?
It was a non-union, but I was union as a plumber.
Did you like being in the union? How was like the work?
The union and the temp is kind of the same thing. One has a school, the other one doesn't. Even a non-union company, they have their own schools as well. So it's not like
Mhm.
you're actually missing a whole lot. You know what I mean? But in
Right.
terms of pay, there is a difference in pay. With the union, it's guarantee raises until your fifth year or whatever year you are. Um, in my opinion, I enjoy the non-union side.
Okay, so the non-union side is not having to do any schooling.
Well, it depends, right? It depends on what company you get with. And some
Mhm.
companies they have joined together and have their own schools.
Oh,
Or some
okay.
companies or some general contractors will have school after work on the job site or somewhere else to teach these other tradesmen to get their education and stuff like that. I mean, at the end of the day, non-union versus union, it really doesn't matter as long as you put food on the table and you learn
Mhm.
what you got to learn and put out good work.
Right. So did you go to the schooling portion of it?
For the union, yes, but
How long
for
was
not
that?
that was it's a 5-year
Oh,
apprenticeship, but
wow.
I only did 4.
Okay. So you learned a
Mhm.
lot then. I mean, a good
Yes, but of course, like they always say, you learn more on the job.
yeah, that is it's really good to learn in the classroom, but then be able to
Hmm.
apply it in the real world. That is
Correct.
what I've learned so far. I've actually learned that in the field, I'm actually realizing how much I don't know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So were you brazing like copper pipes and
Yes. It's all copper. I would braze from 3/4 inch to 2 inch to 4, 6, and then when you braze, you think it's cool, but then you start seeing the welders, then you're like, oh, I didn't know there was more. You know what I mean?
mhm,
So that
mhm.
maybe that's where I got the idea of trying to weld. But before that, I always looked at welding like, it's just a guy gluing two things together, and quite frankly, it still is.
When you first left plumbing and you started going into welding, did you have those moments where you were like, I know this is it. Like this is my career.
I would say when I had switched over to welding, like the iron worker outfit, when I was gluing things together, I had that little spark, like, oh yeah, this might be it, right?
Mhm.
But it wasn't quite there just yet. As soon as I started welding pipe at a different job, that's when it hit me, and that's when I was like, okay, this is my calling. And
Mhm.
I'm sure there's plenty of guys out there too that have the same story and the same outcome, I guess. But it's when you put in a good root, you put in a good hot pass, and you put in a pretty cap, and I don't know. I guess when the work doesn't feel like work, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, so when you have your crew, like how big is a crew when you go to the site?
Well, it depends, right? Like a new construction job site, you'll probably have a crew of like mm, maybe eight.
Mhm.
But I've been on a lot of job sites where it was only a crew of 4 or 5, or even less.
Mhm.
Sometimes crew of 3, and we would put pipe up in the air and tack it, weld it, and just keep on trucking with just 3 guys on the crew.
Yeah. 'Cause you said you're doing the root, the cap, and the face. Um, so you do all three,
So
and
yes,
then
yeah, the root, the hot pass, the fill, and the cap.
but you have your whole crew. Are they all welders or are some helpers?
No. So in this line of business, there's no helpers. It's just pipe fitters or welders, and a
Mhm.
lot of times the welders are also pipe fitters.
Mhm.
You gotta do both. You can't just be one or the other. I mean, granted, if you don't want to weld, you can always be a pipe fitter. But if you're just a welder, you're more than likely going to be the first one to get laid off. If
Mm.
that's all you do. But a lot of the welders nowadays should be able to fit pipe too.
Okay. And can you
Hmm.
walk me through that? Like how you fit pipe?
Sure. Well, it depends, right? If let's say we were butting up 2 joints together, let's say 2 5-foot pieces, right?
Mhm.
And you got a pretty good bevel and it's square. You line it up on jacks or rolling jacks or whatever you got to use, right? So
Mhm.
you line it up. You can use a Deerman clamp or an angle iron, whatever you got to use. And then once you line the pipe up on one
Mhm.
side, you get it, just roughly get it how you want it, and then get the high low out of it. Tack it, and some people do 2 tacks, some people do 4, some people do 3. I like to do, well, it depends on the size, right?
Mhm.
On a 4-inch pipe, I like to do 4 just so it doesn't bow,
Mhm.
because it'll start dog legging if you weld it pipeline style. If you don't weld it quick enough, it'll bow the whole thing, and you can see it, especially on 2 5-foot pieces, slammed together. But yeah, and then you throw your wedges and grind a little bit. If it's tight, put a cutting disc on it. But it's not rocket science.
Right.
And
Yeah. So,
definitely put your level on there. Levels and squares.
so how many pipes are you putting in, let's say on a full day? Or I mean even till lunch. And then, when you
Um,
come back to lunch, is it what does a full day look like from starting when you arrive at the job site?
it depends. If the company you work for already has prefab pipe, then all
Mhm.
you got to do is throw them in the air or throw them up, and then all you got to do is weld the joints. But if you have to do the fabbing yourself on the job site, then you should be able to do like 4, 5, maybe more joints a day. I wouldn't say it's about the footage. A lot of the superintendents and companies, they love to see show pipe. That's like a slang term for like, it might not be welded, but they like the idea of seeing pipe all in the air. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because it shows progression. But it's not true. It's just sitting in the air. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But but on a regular day that's going smooth, you could almost throw up like 200 feet, 100 feet of pipe. Depends on how many joints too. So it's a very factory question. So it's kind of hard to answer, I guess.
Right. I just have a question because I am not familiar with pipe. I
Hmm.
was a little bit more familiar with shipyard, and now I'm in a school setting, so it's, I guess, more of like a manufacturing type of setting is what I would compare it
Hmm.
to. For pipe, so pipe, or is it also pipeline?
No, pipeline is different. The
Mm-hmm.
pipeline is in the ground. Now, granted, fitting it is almost it's the same thing as fitting it, on new construction or at the refinery. It's the same. It's the same thing. You got to have a bevel. You got to line it up. You got to space it, and then you get tack it. Blah 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 blah. But the pipeline is completely different from the welding that's done over in the city.
Mm-hmm.
It's still welding. It's still stick welding, but it's two different procedures, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the pipeliners actually, when they're not working on the pipeline, they'll come work in the city and do what I'm doing right now in new construction.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of those guys will end up teaching, other guys, and of course me too, how to weld faster or weld this and weld that, and they got all sorts of techniques and tricks up their sleeves that they learn on the pipeline because they weld really 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 fast and oh Lord, like I'm telling you, like if it's like 14-inch pipe, they're already done by the time you turn around. You know what I mean? But
Right.
but yes, to answer your question, yes, it's the pipeline is not in the city, and that's a completely different thing. And most of the time, the pipeline in the city is already done way long before. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm. When do you use a stinger versus when you use a TIG, like a TIG gun?
a TIG
What did you
torch,
say? TIG torch.
TIG
Thank you.
TIG torch, yes. So okay, so let's just go by process, not by the tools. When you use stick and when you use TIG, right? The company actually dictates what you use.
Really?
Yes, that you cannot pick which one you want to use. The company will say, "Hey, I'm hiring you to be a pipe welder, but it's in the stick process. Please, can
Mm.
you come here and take a test? 6G, 6-inch pipe, it'll be 60-10, 70-18." Or they could say, "Hey, stainless job, so it's gonna be with stick." Then you're like, "Oh, okay. I'm gonna weld pipe, stainless pipe with stick rather than TIG." But they always tell you what process you're gonna do. You know all this information before you even go to the job or before you even take a test.
Well, so as the pipe fitter or welder, are you seeing the blueprints or are you just being told what to do?
Okay, it depends on the crew, but most of the time where I'm at, you'll see the blueprints. The pipe fitter, it's almost like it's his responsibility to know where things are, and it's just your job to cut the pieces, clean it up, and weld it. And then his job is to almost like the mastermind, and he take cares of everything else, like the hangers, fitting the pipe, prepping the pipe, and then you do what you can, like looking at spool pieces or stuff, stuff like that.
Hmm.
But we'll both see the blueprints.
Do you notice that with smaller companies or bigger companies, or is it just based on per job? Like, how does that go?
On the blueprint stuff,
Mm-hmm.
no, it doesn't matter big or small. They're both gonna hand you a set of blueprints, and you're gonna look at it, and you're gonna have to. They kind of expect you to know what you're looking at. But again, a lot of the blueprints are just a top-down view of like where it needs to be, and they'll give you the elevation, what size pipe, and if it needs to be 45 or not. But it's not your job to understand like if there's electrical conduit in the way or the duct is in the way. That's not your
Mm-hmm.
job. That's the fitter or your lead man's job, because he's gonna have the iPad and he's gonna have the 3D drawing and all that jazz. So it's his job to inform you, hey, you can't put the hanger here or you can't put the pipe here. So we're gonna have to make an on-site change.
So how did you get familiarized with blueprints? Was it just being on the job, or was it from
Um,
your
Par-
plumbers?
yes, from my plumbing days, partially from the union, and then partially learned also on the job. I do like to say one thing though. If you're going from union or non-union to union, right? As soon as you make that
Hmm.
change, there's going to be a different change of pace. You're going to have to learn how to be able to work by yourself, and or not work by yourself, but learn quicker, because now you have more responsibility. You know what I'm saying? I'm not
Hmm.
sure how to explain this, but like let's say your job right now, right? You're learning quite a lot, and you're doing things by yourself, and it's great, but you still have somebody over your shoulder looking at you, right?
Right.
But as soon as you leave that job and you go somewhere else and you get more pay and your title's a little different, you're now a fabricator welder rather than just welder or whatever it may be, you're gonna have to like pull your
Fill those
bootstraps
shoes.
up and go almost a little harder, because
Right.
now they expect more out of you.
Yeah, you hold the title. They're gonna put you to
Yes,
the test. They're gonna see what you
yes.
really
And
know.
and they're gonna find out quick. You can spot the greenhorn pretty quick on the way they work. They
Hmm.
might lie a lot, when they got the job, but when it's time to do the job, oh geez, you got to go. You know what I mean?
So is it a safe place to ask questions? Is it what I want to know? Or is it expected of you to pretty much know?
I would say, realistically, in my like personal experience, like and what I've seen also, you just got to know at least 80%,
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, like copper pipe, stainless pipe, carbon pipe, it's all pipe, right?
Mhm.
They all need to be on a hanger, right? They all need to be hung somehow. It's all the same methods, right?
Mhm.
The only difference is it's okay to ask if you don't know, but just don't lie that you know everything. Because then if you
Right.
do that, they expect you to know everything.
Right. I'm definitely learning a lot where I'm at, and I think being in a smaller shop, it forces me to have a lot more responsibility, and I think my boss puts a lot more trust
Hmm.
into what I do right now. And so I get that, trying to fill the shoes of being a welder helper, and you being in welding school, I have the knowledge, but a lot of it is being put to the test. So
Hmm.
that part, I
If you
totally
learn quick,
understand.
if you learn
I
quick,
do, I do.
you
Yeah.
earn that you will earn that spot pretty fast. Like when I was fabricating, I used to make these skids
Mhm.
where they put pumps and stuff in to recycle water or whatever liquid that's inside. I started off making skids, and it was structural, so I do a lot of channel and a lot of square tubing and angle. And
Mhm.
I was a welder's helper for about a good 3 months, like doing that number right there.
Mhm.
And once I caught on how to to do the structure, you know, plumb and square doesn't really mean anything as long as you know how to pull tape, you know, aka measurements. When you learn how to use your measurements and using your squares, you know, not everything is going to be flat. Those pieces, like, you know, like as you know, flat pieces are not actually flat. They're all bowed and curved in certain directions, and the
Especially when
only
you
way
start
to
welding them too.
yeah, that too. But I would say your tacking is important. Where you
Yes.
tack is important because then
Right.
you can hinge the material. If you know how to pull measurement and you know how to get the bowness out of a material, then you know I think I would say that's 80% of the game right there.
Right.
And then all you got to do is weld that sucker up, and then you're good to go. But I'd say, like, if you know how to pull tape, you know how to make things straight, you know, you pretty much got the game down there, you know.
Right. And I completely agree. Yeah, just being in the field and then comparing to what we're doing at school, the repetition is really good, but at the same time, I think the fabrication part is so important, or even fitting.
Mm-hmm.
And I just haven't gotten there yet just
Mm-hmm.
because we're just doing bead after bead, but
Mm-hmm.
it's something I'm definitely looking forward to.
I'm glad that you're at your job, right? I'm sure you're learning a lot, and I know you're fabricating a lot. But once you like leave that job and go somewhere else, you start to see that what you learned from your last job is very relatable to the next job. But my ironworker job, once I left that to the other job where I was fabricating these skids, it was the same. It was the same shit, except one was building buildings, and then the other one was building skids, like platforms. It was the same thing. I had to do the same thing, get the measurements, plummet, square the entire piece itself. You know, it was the same shit, and then the welding process was the same thing with MIG, or sometimes it requires TIG, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it was transferable. And then when I got from there, then I went to pipe welding. It was not the same thing, but eventually once you caught on a little bit, it became the same thing. But if I had gone from pipe welding or from that ironworker job to the fab job, and then I end up going, let's say I were to do cars, oh, that's a completely different ball game. You see what I'm saying? So with the school, you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, because it's not what they're trying to teach you is not exactly what these companies out here locally want. Yes, it's amazing that you might be learning aerospace and all that, but not every company is aerospace out here. I don't know. Maybe this is just a tip to you rather than the tip for the podcast. I don't know. You decide how you want to do that.
Would you recommend a community college for somebody that has interest, that knows, maybe nothing? They want to go into welding. Would you recommend a community college, or would you recommend going into the union? Or just trying to find a job that will teach you the skills necessary for the job.
Right.
But I think we know oftentimes it's a little bit hard to get in a shop. Like, you could start as a grunt and then work your way up.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I think
But
somebody that
even
wants to
getting
go
the
into
grunt job is
welding,
hard.
yeah, I've been there. But
Yeah.
even going into welding, like, what do you really suggest?
Okay, so we can look at it like three ways, right? Yeah. So step one, if you have a buddy already, go with your buddy and get on that job, be a grunt or an apprentice or a helper. That's step one. If you don't have step one, try step two. Step two is taking one welding class. See if you actually like the welding portion, and then do research on the types of jobs that you get to, you know. And then step three, or another step, or another process, or I'm sorry, another route would be joining the union. But I would only recommend joining the union or going full time at welding school or something like that. I wouldn't recommend welding school anyways. But if you want to go and you decided, you know what, welding is for me, of course, 100% join the union, because in the union while you're going to school, you're already working because the
Mhm.
union helps you find a job within their
Right.
contractor circle. So,
Right.
yes, so let's say you were going to the union, right? You got accepted. You know, it's beautiful. You saw the pay raise and all that, the pay rates, and it's great. The first day on the job, right? They're gonna know that you're a helper, you're an apprentice, and you learn the trade. And then at night, you learn how to weld. And then time goes on, you're right next to the welders, you're right next to the fitters, and you learn the tricks and how to do these things. So by the time you get to school, all you did is refine it. See, but
Mhm.
that path is only if you're 100% that's what you want to do.
Right.
If you don't know what you want to do and you just want to try it, take one class. Do not do the whole program because you're wasting your money. Try one class for the summer. If you like it, go for it. If you don't, you didn't lose that much. If you already have the skills to do what you need to do, all you have to do is ask your company to put you on as that title and let you take the test or be able to prove what you want, that you are a welder or a fabricator or whatever that may be.
For me, the way I had found my job was I called every single company within like
Mhm.
my radius, like 10,
Mhm.
15-mile radius. And I called every single shop. No, we're not looking for a welder. No, we're not looking for a welder. No, we're not. Like I called plumbers, I called electricians. I was just
Mhm.
desperate to get into the trade.
Mhm.
And that's kind of the advice I had given to some of my classmates that see me working, and they were like, "Hey, how did you get that job?" I just gave them the same advice: keep calling and calling and calling. And honestly, I was even hesitant to tell them to say, "Hey, are you looking for a welder?" Because all my skills are being put to the test. And I would just go and call and say, "Hey, are you looking for a welder helper?" Like, especially because we're still in school, we're not really
Mhm.
officially a welder yet.
You know, depends. It really depends. If you know what you're doing at school and you know how to set up a machine and you know what to weld and you know how to set the parameters, you're a fucking welder outside of work, outside of school.
Mhm.
As long as you pass that test, know what the hell you're doing. I don't give a shit if you have 1 month of school or not. You just gotta prove it to me. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But yes, I agree. I wouldn't call a bunch of companies asking if they need a welder, right? I would
Mhm.
say it's best to go for those those manufacturing companies where they expect, quite frankly, low quality work.
Right.
And then that's where you get your hood time, and eventually at those jobs, you're gonna find an OG or old school dude, old dude that's been doing it for a long time, and that manufacturing job that he's at, it's just an it's just his 8-hour check that he needs because he's old,
Mhm.
but he got a lot of tricks and tips, and you want to learn from him. And then once you learn from him, and then by that time you probably have a year, 6 months, 2 years. I know guys who only welded at school for 6 months and with no job prior, and they're already working at the refineries because they're just that they're just that slick.
Mhm.
And like
Oh,
in
okay.
my case, I was already welding prior to school,
Mhm.
prior to going to community school. So, and then when I went to community school, all I did was refine, certain things and got better because I had more hood time, you
Mhm.
know. But I guess the number one tip is that it doesn't matter if you're welding with TIG or stick or MIG. At the end of the day, when you're looking at a puddle, it all acts the same. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Mhm.
I used a lot of my MIG experience, right? While I
Mhm.
was working using MIG, I treated it like I was welding with stick. And I'm not gonna lie to you, like I would weld MIG, not like crazy like with the stick rod, but I would weld gaps at work because it ends up being a gap anyways. But by welding those gaps, I learned the movement, the technique. So when I came to doing stick later on, oh man, it was a breeze because I already understood what I needed to do. All I had to do was add more metal, on these edges or whatever I had to do. And it was the same principle from MIG to stick and stick to MIG. I guess I don't know how you would say it, but if it was like a video game, right? If you practice with a sword in your hand all the time, a sword in the shield is not so much different.
So you mentioned that you went to community college. How long was your schooling for community college?
So prior, I already had classes done. But the welding portion it only took me a year, 1 year.
Oh,
So
okay.
2 semesters.
So the classes you took before, did you leave with a certificate, or did you leave with what did you?
So before that, I already had an associate's for accounting.
Oh, wow.
So I
you
already
came
had a
from
lot of those
accounting.
classes done. Well, no, that's when I was younger and I was going to college anyways. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and that's how I found the union and whatnot, because accounting wasn't my thing. But I already had a lot of these prerequisite classes done for the welding program, so I ended up graduating in 2 semesters.
Oh, okay. Nice. And you took all the MIG, TIG, stick,
Yep,
like all the multi-process.
just all the process. Yep, just all the process.
Nice. Okay.
I do like to shout out one school though.
Oh yeah.
One school. If you're in Dallas and you want to learn how to weld, the best teacher I ever met, and is Matt Arnold. You might know him from WeldTube, but he teaches at Mountain View in Oak Cliff. That's probably the best guy to learn how to weld, pipe, sanitary tube, structural, anything. If anything, that's probably the best guy, your best bet to learn from.
And do you have a favorite process?
Oh, if you talk to my old professors and stuff, it's stick welding for sure.
Nice. And do you do a lot of stick welding in the field?
Yes, everything. So I've done both the fab shop and the field work for pipe. I've done both MIG and flux. I've done also TIG too, but a lot of it was stick outside on the field. But I'm trying to get more TIG work. It's just, man, it's just at the end of the day, you start to realize you have to kind of specialize one or the other. I know the term combo welder, but not all combo welders are both slick at stick and TIG. It's either they're slicker at one than the other. You know what I mean? And I would say for me, I'm slicker on stick than I am on TIG.
Yeah, I think stick comes a little bit easier for me too, which is why I'm looking forward to that TIG class so I could improve my skills. Any TIG supplies, TIG cups you recommend?
If you're doing thin stuff, I would say the nozzle. Use the nozzle for the 11 gauge, 18 gauge. If you're doing plate, I'd suggest buying a jumbo cup and with the bigger filter on the inside. And yeah, that's all I gotta say. Like, you don't go getting the clear cups. The clear glass cups. Those are cool and they'll help you. But if you're not even good to begin with, they're not really helping you at all.
Right.
And I have my own TIG rig. I would bring it to school as well. And off the record, I would recommend.
I like to even edit brands out just because I know some people like to talk shit about the whole Miller Lincoln thing, and I just edit it out because it's like, dude, I freaking got an Amazon welder, my first welder, and I didn't even I couldn't afford shit.
Me too. My first welder was a $100 welder.
Yep.
And before I even switched jobs, right? On my career, I was already practicing welding at home. and I would use 6011 and I would pretend like it's 60. I mean, it is still 6010. It's just a cousin of it. And I would use 6011 as my 6010 practice. And then when I got to school finally, a lot of the teachers were like, you already know what you're doing. I was like, no, I don't. But, it's because I already practice at home and I was already kind of understanding the movements. And all I had to do was get somebody to tell me to do it better or, fix this or fix that,
Mm-hmm.
When I was going to school, we would legitimately go to each booth and find out which one had the best TIG rigs, and we use that one instead. And we will fight. We wouldn't fight over it, but we'll fight over like, hey, that booth number 17 is always mine. You know what I mean? Because it had the best TIG rig. It would have some in the booths have flexible heads. But they don't. The school doesn't tell you that, and you're like over here struggling while somebody's having the best bead plate on earth.
I realized
what
that.
The hell?
I definitely realized that. Yeah, they put some machines on the outside, and I was like, "Oh, those machines are it." It's super light. The hose is light. It's flexible. It's like some new Lincoln.
It's not even the machine. It's like certain booths have better stuff, and it's like why. So to eliminate all of that, just have better stuff with you at all times.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at some of those TIG rigs online right now. Is there like a certain lengthwise?
So for your school, right? I recommend the 15-footer or 20-foot.
Okay.
Because those machines, they're just, I don't understand. They put machines outside the booth. Now the TIG rigs don't even fucking reach in the fucking booth.
Barely.
And it just makes me, I don't understand the logic here, but okay, it's better if they put the machine sideways, facing the entrance rather than facing out.
Right. What about a flex head versus, I don't know, a non-flex head?
Always get a flex head. Always get a flex. I mean, there's old school timers. They'll say, hey, you need to learn how to weld with a non-flex head, but no, get you the flex head. That will be the best TIG rig you ever used, and you'll never switch back.
Does that website also sell TIG cups?
Yes, they do, but I wouldn't buy it from them.
Okay. Backing out.
Because it's expensive. In my opinion, you just need the consumables and the items that's more helpful to you. And then after you got the things that are helpful to you, get better at your skill. And then once you're good, then you can go buy the specialty tools.
I see. No, that is some good advice.
Here's a good tip right here. Don't ever rely on the company to provide you the equipment you need to do your job, especially welding. Always have your own stinger ready.
I know why. It's because they just want to buy the cheapest products, right?
Wrong.
Oh,
wrong.
Okay.
It's because the equipment they give you is already used and abused.
Oh, okay.
And most likely
that makes
broken.
sense too. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. If it still works, why replace it? So my number one tip is always have your own equipment and tools, especially if you're a welder. Always have your own stinger. Always have your own ground. Always have
even your own ground.
TIG rig. Because some grounds don't reach. I'm not saying you need to carry 100 foot. I'm just saying carry a pigtail, aka like a short whip, a short 5-footer in your backpack or in your toolbox at all times, just in case the one that the company provided, you just needed that 5 more foot to touch, make that connection. But, the company doesn't have it because you already ran 200 feet. And especially in these buildings, it's not 200 feet straight shot. It's 200 feet around the corner, another corner, on top of somebody else. And then, and as you know, that 200 feet gets used up real quick because all those bends.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's my number one tip. Always my number one tip. Always have your own stuff, you know, and the female and the male ends, and you know, because you can't always rely on the company to provide you brand new tools. And then if they do, you know, that's a great company.
Right. Okay. Really appreciate you coming on and, sharing all your wisdom. And if anyone wants to find you on social media, where could they find you at?
Y'all can follow me on Instagram or TikTok at Hibana.welding. Or you can go on our website, Hibana-welding or HibanaWeldingTogether.com.
Dope. All right. Well, thank you so much. And yeah.
Thank you.